Okay, so on page 42, I'm going to be doing 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm actually going to save 3 for last. Okay, number 1, first we add 2 to both sides. So we have the square root of 4x minus 19 equals 7. Then I square both sides. So I get 4x minus 19 equals 49. Add 19. 4x equals 68. Divide by 4, so x equals 17. And when you plug it back in to check to make sure this is not extraneous, it works, and that is your answer. Okay, so let's try number 2. The square root of a equals 5 times the square root of 2. Okay, so I do have a radical on both sides, but that's okay. I'm just going to square both sides. So that becomes a equals, now 5 root 2 times 5 root 2. 5 times 5 is 25. Root 2 times root 2 is 2. So a equals 50. And when I plug it back in, the square root of 50 is the same as 5 root 5. So that works. Now, I'm going to jump down to number 4 at the very bottom, because number 3 is the most complicated. 10 plus 4 root 3 minus 2x equals 14. So the first thing I do is subtract 10 from both sides. 14 minus 10 is 4. Divide by 4, and I end up with square root of 3 minus 2x equals 1. Square both sides. 3 minus 2x equals 1. Negative 2x equals negative 2. X equals 1. And when I plug it back in to make sure it's not extraneous, it works and it's not extraneous. Okay, so they were a little more complicated, but not super hard. I think this next one, number 3, is about as hard as they get. So I have root 4x plus 3 plus root 4x equals 3. Now, there's different ways to handle this. I personally do not want to have to FOIL 2 radicals. So what I'm going to choose to do is get one radical on the left and one on the right. And now this way, when I square both sides, instead of foiling a radical plus a radical as a binomial, I'm foiling a number and a radical, which is not as bad. Okay, so here, I'm going to square this, I'm going to square this. This is 4x plus 3 equals, and remember here, we have to FOIL. And because we're dealing with radicals, which are a little bit harder, I write it out. So 4x plus 3 equals 3 times 3 is 9 minus 3 root 4x minus 3 root 4x, and a negative times a negative is positive, plus 4x. Okay, now notice this 4x is on the right, this 4x is on the left. I subtract 4x from both sides. Okay, so now I have 3 equals 9 minus 6 root 4x. I subtract 9 from both sides, and I get negative 6 equals negative 6 root 4x. Divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6. 1 equals root 4x. Square both sides, and I get 1 equals 4x, so x equals 1/4. And if you do plug that back in, you find out that it works, so it's not extraneous. So what I did to make this easier was I did subtract root 4x at the very start, okay? if you did not do that, and I will try to zoom in on this. This is another way of doing it where you get the same answer, but you see it's much more complicated when I foiled a radical times a radical. Just gets more complicated, but you do get the same answer. So you can stop the video and look at that if you did it that way and did something wrong and want to check and see what you did. Okay, but now you can stop this. Video is going to end and you go ahead and start your work.